good afternoon to you, and I'm happy to be back on the show. I hope that you have all been well. It's been quite a while since I hosted the show, but it's exciting to be back. My name is Isabella Akiteng, and I will be hosting today's show. And yes, the countdown to 60 years of independence is upon us. For those of you who might have forgotten, we are going to be celebrating 60 years of independence on the 9th of October, 2022. And it's been quite the journey. And so joining me on the panel to discuss the journey so far is Bashira, who is not, she's not a rare face on this show. We also have Charity, who has journeyed with Civic Space TV, and you've probably seen her on other shows and not just this one. So today we have borrowed her from where she always is, and she's joining us. And then we have Aijuka Evelyn, who is also a regular face. And joining us for the first time on the show is Gloria, who is a lover and an advocate for girl-child equality. She's also a social worker, and she's going to be celebrating 60 years with us. So ladies, you're very much welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So as we start the show, 60 years of independence, I'd like each of you to just celebrate. What would be your message if you were to write a message on the 9th of October? What would it sound like to Uganda? Who would like to go first? On that morning when we wake up, and let us imagine that Civic Space TV is doing quotable quotes to tweet that day. What would your quotable quote be to Uganda upon reaching 60 years of independence? Yes, Gloria.
I can start.
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Gloria Kamayangi once again. I am a Civic Space TV lover. And I'm appearing for the first time.
Yes.
I'm happy to be here.
I've had cake for her.
And I will regularly be here.
Yes.
Since I have already started. 60 years of independence, the journey we have moved. We have moved the journey. Not a straight journey, but a journey, a mixed journey. For the last 34 years, I can say it has been a straight journey. But the other years, it wasn't. It was characterized by instabilities and political turmoil. As a country, I think we have moved a lot. We have achieved, especially as the women of this country, we have done a lot. The women empowerment, women emancipation. I am a beneficiary of the women emancipation. In my education, throughout, I have benefited. So I have a lot to credit this country for the journey it has moved, the 60 years of independence.
Okay, thank you very much. Bashira, do you want to go next?
Yeah. As a person, I think if I'm given a chance to actually say something on that day, basically it would be thanking the now generation. The current generation in our country has gone through a lot. They have evidenced and they have witnessed every kind of lifestyle. They have seen it all. So the message would just go to this generation, because when we go back in history, a lot happened. But when you compare the generations, these current generations, I was discussing with a friend last week, and I always have chats with older women, and I'm like, but why is it that these people who are in their 40s or 50s always tell us that if we go back in the 20s, we would have done much, like we would have done even better. So I'm like, what new thing would you people do? This lady told me, no, they are lying you. If those people who are now 60 and 50 come back to your 20s, they cannot even survive. So it made me smile, and I realized that if this old woman can see that these people have really endured, then I would really love to pass a message to the young generation that the struggle is still going on and we shall succeed.
Thank you very much. Yes.
So if I had to write a message on 9th October, which is just 2 weeks away from today, I would say, oh, Uganda, congratulations on your 60th birthday, but what a journey. A mixed basket. A basket of highs and a basket of lows. So many lows in terms of democracy. You score very terribly. In terms of security and peace, you are so high up there. You score probably 9 out of 10. You're doing well. In terms of prosperity, I could only rate you at generously 5 or 6 out of 10. Why? Because the divide of the haves and the have-nots has grown so wide. We still have a lot of work to do to improve the livelihood of our people and to change them. On the education spectrum, we have so many universities, but what for? What do we say we can say we sell as Uganda, unique to the whole world? And these are the points of challenge I have for every Ugandan that wakes up on 9th October and you feel you're Ugandan at heart, you love your country, you're patriotic. What have you done to cause a difference in your country?
Yes.
I woke up a little, I will say a little bit more patriotic today.
Yes.
And it explains my shirt. I love my country. I love Uganda. And every time independence happens, I want to take it to an individual level. How independent are you? As a Ugandan, as a young person, as somebody in your middle age, as somebody nearing retirement, how independent are you? Because yes, we love to celebrate our country. Remembering the history that we have, and we are cognizant of where we're headed. But what strides have you made as an individual? And for me, I think that's a challenge. Whereas everybody wakes up on New Year's and they're making New Year's resolutions, when independence happens, it strikes real deep within me. How independent are you?
Yes.
How many strides have you taken this year? Can you comfortably say that your finances have increased since the last independence, for example? Can you comfortably say that you have your freedom of speech and you can speak with your head and your shoulders high up without worrying what will happen to my family or myself?
Yes.
Can you comfortably say, oh, as a country or as an individual, I'm proud, or as a youth, that hey, I have taken some strides. So for me, it zeroes down to an individual. I would want us to just reflect internally, see where you have been, see where you are, and project where you want to be.
Yes. And it's 60 years, Diamond Jubilee. So in the spirit of continuing this celebration, and we will come back and do a critique because it is important, but in the spirit of celebration, 1962, when we look at history, a lot of the history around 1962 is dominated by men. And so we have the forefathers that we celebrate, Ignatius Kangabe Musazi, we have Milton Obote, there was that association.
Yeah.
And yet, on this journey to 60, there's been women who have, who have made tremendous investment, even as we celebrate the different sectors. And so, just one woman that you would like, that when you look back, you say, yes, if I were to celebrate independence through the eyes of a woman, it would be through your eyes.
Wow.
Yes, and I know it's a lot of reflection because it's 60 years.
Yeah.
I would celebrate through Ntiro Sarah,
Yes.
who had an immense contribution to education. And I would celebrate through, most certainly, Miriam Matembe. Why? Because she was part of the constitution-making process for the 1995 constitution. Might have not been there much earlier constitutions.
Yes.
But for the later generation that now counts from the 35 years that the NRM has been in power, 35, 37,
Yes.
whichever. And I I think those two stand out for me. Joyce Mpanga would be the other. Still also in the education sector. I would celebrate through her eyes as well. And I know the bush women. The bush women were many, but I don't know the 1962 women apart from Mama Miria Obote. Mama Miria, I think when she joined the struggle, part of the things was to cause cohesion between Buganda and the central government at that time. So we could celebrate through her eyes what she remembers, even when the Queen came here, the flags were going down, the British flag, and then the Ugandan flag going up. She is still alive. It would be beautiful to see her reminisce the 60 years and for her to tell us if there is actually that significant difference that we can celebrate after 60 years.
Okay, thank you very much, Charity. Yes, Evelyn.
I think for me it would be my mother. My mother, nobody knows her, just like very many Ugandans. She's a true representation of many Ugandans. Many of our mothers that have lived those times, that were even there maybe through the wars that we have endured as a country. And why I would want to celebrate this independence through her eyes is that she represents the struggle of an ordinary Ugandan who has strived through the years to put us through school in not enough, in not so much of an abundance, but has strived to see that I am here to speak this kind of English, to you know, struggle to find their space in this country. You know, some are lucky that they are born in lineages that have already established, you know, backgrounds. But most Ugandans, we're not that lucky. So for a Ugandan to strive, get their children through school, and I say my mother, and I represent every other woman out there that has struggled to take their children, you know, through school, and they have lived that time. I celebrate them. I celebrate independence through their eyes. I celebrate that they were independent enough to take their children and have the courage to fight through all those hurdles. So for me, it's my mother. It's every woman out there that has strived.
Thank you very much. Bashir?
I would love to actually kind of relate with her situation. In general, I would not only celebrate women who have used their political will or their political offices, or women who have been lucky to face cameras. It's not that every woman there has this chance. And also these women who struggle, because when we look at the current situation here, women are doing everything. Women are driving huge trucks. Women are driving bodas. Last time I was at KFC and I ordered for Safe Border. A small lady came on a bike and parked. I was like, hello. But I felt really good. And it's a big inspiration, because I don't think women back then were this strong.
They were strong in their
own way. But then this is different, because there are many changes. You see borders, and you find a woman driving on a border. How would you drive a border back then? You see a woman on a steering of a very huge truck. So I celebrate every woman, those who cannot face cameras, those who have not even seen, because there are many women who have not yet even seen mattresses, but then they are surviving to keep lives, like, you know. I celebrate every woman. I celebrate every man out there who is supporting a woman.
Okay, thank you very much, Bashira. Gloria?
Thank you. I would like to celebrate all women of this country. They have gone through a lot. They have contributed a lot to the development of this country. Our women have struggled to educate their children. Down there in my villages, where I come from, women are the biggest contributors to the family development in terms of education, food, and the rest. So I associate myself with all the Ugandan women. Currently, there are women who have gone to Abu Dhabi, to Dubai, to work for their families to live. They have left their families, their children, and their husbands take care of their homes. So if I'm celebrating a woman, I must start with that one who has sacrificed her life to go and face those challenges in the Middle East.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. So the celebration, again, 60 years, there's so much that we could celebrate. And through the lens of our mother, the average woman, we continue. I would celebrate in bulk agencies like the Catholic Women's Guild, agencies like Mothers Union, agencies like the Indian Women's Association that were very much part of this journey to independence. But of course, the history books don't say a lot about them.
Yeah.
But it wasn't activists on the, like the ones that we see today who advocated and pushed. It was women in the church, women in, religious spaces. And so I celebrate them today for the contribution that they make. But then we also have women like Rhoda Kalema, women like Ntiro, who also played their part over the 60 years of independence. And so there's a lot for us to reflect on, even as we count down towards 9th October 2022. But let us come back and have a conversation around our political journey, our political journey as a country, because the gaining of independence was not economic independence per se. So we did not necessarily achieve economic independence. We did not necessarily achieve social independence, but we did achieve political independence when the flag went up. So it's important to have a conversation around the political independence of this country, over the years. And I know Charity had started that conversation when she said this is a mixed, fruit basket. And so, ladies, I'd like to ask, and it's also unfortunate that we're having this conversation the week after the Queen was buried. Yes, it's but quite significant, But in terms of political independence, the aspirations that the forefathers had for us as a country, when you look back 60 years from today, do you think they are clapping in their graves? Or are they having a mixed basket situation? Or are they in utter shock? I don't know who would like to go first.
I think I can go first.
Yes.
Well, for me, I think it's like she mentioned, a huge basket of a mixture. But for me, I think prior to us as a country attaining independence, we had so much to desire. Then we had, we had faced some bit of turmoil. We had endured so much as a country, and maybe then the raising of the flag meant so much to us. Over the years, needs keep changing. We're living in a dynamic, time. And like she mentioned earlier, we score high on some of the achievements as a country, and some not so much. And for me, it's to applaud where we have, tried as a country. But also, I know at a later time we will have to underscore some of those, poke some holes in some of them where we could do better. And the journey hasn't been rather a smooth one. I was actually laughing this morning that I would have loved to live the 79th year. Can you imagine 3 presidents in just 1 year? You have Gloria, and then Alisa, and then Ida. So for me, I would have loved to live a time. I wish I was there then. Then maybe my story would be different. I would have loved to see a change of guard. Maybe I would have even more informed decision. Maybe I would have much more to discuss. Maybe I would have a lot to, speak about. Unfortunately, I'm a 19-something born. There's not much I can speak. I can only speak to my, 20 plus years. But from what we gather when we sit with the elders, there's quite a bit of a journey that we can applaud, and we can go into the specifics. But there's also a lot that is left, wanting. And with this discourse, we should be able to move forward as a country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it is a deeper reflection. It's a big question you ask there. Are their forefathers clapping their hands? Are they in utter shock? I think they have never clapped their hands, really.
Wow.
I don't think from what has happened in the last 60 years, they have clapped their hands. They probably had started to think they would clap their hands after the 1995 Constitution was promulgated. And they thought, well, let's begin to clap our hands. 15 years after that Constitution had been promulgated, they went into utter shock.
Yes.
So I want to reflect back at the time before 1962. Before 1962, Ugandans were very well organized in kingdoms. We had Bunyoro Kingdom and we had Buganda Kingdom. These were two strong kingdoms. But we also had other smaller kingdoms, but extremely organized. They used to grow coffee, they had cotton, and they had their daily way of living. Unfortunately, the woman at that time was meant for the kitchen, was kept in the kitchen, was never to eat chicken, and many other things. She was supposed to stay there. And the woman was looked at more as a reproduction machine. If I married you and you did not produce for me a boy, you headed back home. And that has grown through the 60 years. We have not seen it die. Even when we came and we have said women are important, still there has been that one. Now they have even started a new campaign of, we have forgotten the boy child.
Yeah.
Why are we over making this girl child very important? It's no longer important. So the story has the tilting and patriarchy lived through. And like you said, the table remained largely for the men. Now, during that time, when they started to partition East Africa, the whites, of course, the Brits, and you say, unfortunately, the Queen dies at this time, and we are going to celebrate 60, and she's dead. She stayed on as the Queen of Uganda and the head of state even when she gave us independence in 62. She stayed on for one more year and ruled through Governor Walter. Now, when she ruled through Governor Walter, the whole idea was to see us transition into a republic, but we didn't transition into a republic at the start. We stayed as a state for such a time because our constitution did not clarify the role of the president at the time, who was Kabaka, a Kabaka. Now he remained Kabaka of Buganda, but he also wore the hat of president. But remember, there were many other tribes within Uganda that did not associate necessarily with Buganda. And then there was a prime minister who was overarching. He wanted to be in charge of the government, but the instrument was not clarifying whether he actually would be in charge of the government. So Uganda then remained a state until we had that constitution, the first one, they called the 1962 constitution, but actually came into force in 1963. Now, until that constitution came up, even when it came, it also still did not clarify these roles. And it was the reason for the turmoil that we began to see that cropped up. 66 was a very dangerous year. She wishes she lived in that time. 79 was worse. People were being plundered in boots of cars, never to be seen again. And you know, all these stories are there. Yes, I have read them. Now for me, I have lived through the session of, I came out of that century that closes when the president takes over, this current president takes over power. So I can say clearly that if I see the things that I saw happening at that time, and I have met people like David Mpanga, you know David Mpanga of Bank of Uganda, his dad went missing just like that, and he can't explain, and he was a young boy. And you know, when you read their stories and how it feels, guy, you don't want to think about it. You don't want to think your father was with you this morning,
and in the evening
you don't know where he is, and you will never know. And after 2-3 weeks, you're told a certain car rolled him away from there, and you've never seen his body. He was not mutilated. You didn't bury him. So you live with this thought of maybe one day he will appear, and he has never appeared for 40 years.
Yeah.
So it was a bad time. And then the economic situation wasn't any better. And the women, of course, continued to be challenged in those times. Even as they looked after children, it looked like the men would go and work. The women in Amin's time were known as secretaries. That was the best job.
Yeah.
You are either a secretary or a cook in a company. If you exceeded secretary and cook, we didn't know where you passed. So you can imagine that even reflecting about the woman at that time, my forefathers who wished for us to have been more independent, they got utterly shocked when the independence came, and this is what was happening. One government changing to another, but the women were continually
Left
being
behind.
Yeah,
Yes.
And so the 95 constitution then changes a bit of that. We come up with affirmative action. We come up with the fact that we said there is equity. We want to see women in particular, and we are deliberate to see them go in those spaces. And I think I give a plus to this government. It has its big problems. But when it comes to the women movement and growing the woman and making us now bold enough to even tell them off, they have some accolades.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to jump Bashira for a while and come to Gloria. Uganda's political journey over the last 60 years. What would that look like through, for example, because she has talked about a lot of the political spaces, but I want to assume that you have a certain amount of information around parliament and legislation. What would that look like?
Okay.
Yes.
I don't want to go back to the period
Indeed.
before independence
Yes.
or immediately after independence, because it's a period that I don't want to associate myself with. It was a terrible period. The period that I've seen thriving is this period between 1986 and now.
Yeah.
Yes, there are some attributes that have been registered to this government, especially to the women. We have seen women rise from ground level above maybe almost the skies. We have seen women representative in parliament
Yes.
growing to up to 46%. The other affirmative action of youth, of workers, of UPDF, and now the elderly. So all those ones have been given space. And this was deliberate because we are looking at equity. My mother, who was then living, was not allowed to come near a table of men when they were discussing. She could remain there in the kitchen. And that's how we found the situation. This government should be credited, at least for that. It has uplifted women. The status of women has really risen up. When you look at Parliament, over the years, Right Honorable Kadaga was the Speaker of Parliament for 20 years, 10 as a Deputy, 10 as a Speaker. And we have seen now the current Speaker, who is a woman. We have seen the Prime Minister, who is a woman, the Vice President, previously, Dr. Speechiosa Wandera Kazibwe, and now the VP, Honorable Arupo Jessica, the Prime Minister, Honorable Nabanja. All these are women that we applaud, and we applaud this government for giving us space. Even in the lower local councils, women have been given space. And this is something that we must be proud of. In the local councils, women are becoming speakers. Women have become district chairpersons. Women have become chairpersons of LC1s or LC2s and LC3s. And this is all achievement. I must say, Uganda, the Ugandan woman has achieved a lot and has gained a lot. Despite all this progress, we still have challenges. Women worldwide, they account for 10% of the poorest. Women worldwide, not only Uganda, they still account for the highest percentage of illiterates. Women still face domestic violence. And this is something that the country must fight. We must bring it on table. We must discuss it. A woman should not be abused, should be given space to be equal to the man in certain roles. Because also when you say a woman should be equal to a man, some people will misunderstand it and will misuse it. A woman should know her roles, and a woman should be knowing his roles. And that is what we call equity.
Okay, thank you very much. Bashira, we're going to move into another question. and it's a question around the forefathers of Africa. Because the history does not tell us, we need to write stories about the foremothers.
Yeah.
But, but when we look at the forefathers, yes, when we look at the forefathers of Africa around independence, the likes of Kwame Nkrumah, the likes of,
Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela, very many.
Yeah.
There was the foundation of Pan-Africanism, and that was the lens through which all the forefathers pushed and worked for independence for their individual countries. How are we doing on the Pan-African front? Because it was a common denominator across the continent. It was a common denominator with all the conversations that the forefathers had in Kenya, in Tanzania, going to West Africa, moving down to the south. There was Pan-Africanism. And I know you've whispered OAU, because even at the time that the OAU was being formed, the spirit of Pan-Africanism was still the agenda being pushed. Yeah. And then along the way, nationalism, and then the regional groupings. So how are we doing on that front?
I remember some time back, I'm forgetting there, when Africans were fighting for their independence, and this was basically these Africans who, remember during the Industrial Revolution, these whites were now in no need of a black man, because they were doing all the hard work, and now they have the machines to come in. So they were moved to Liberia. And this is where most of these people rose up, and they were really determined. I don't know, the spirit was so high. It could be because they suffered together, because they were gathered from all parts of Europe to basically Africa. And they put them there. It was kind of a dumping site.
In Liberia.
Yes. And some of these other countries, there is this country, I'm forgetting its name. So these people had a strong will, because maybe they were previously suffering and they knew how it felt. So I don't know where the I'm not sure if the Pan-Africanism is, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because when you relate the previous situation, at least even if we are still under neo-colonialism, we can still survive. It's different from the side where the British were directly controlling. Right now there are some things you may do and these people will not know. So if we have this independence and you still see the disagreements, let me say, I don't know, but these people don't trust each other, they don't want each other, they just hate each other. So I'm not seeing any spirit of Pan-Africanism, actually, basically, when we look at our current leaders. Because to me, it would be loving your continent, loving the black race, putting it high. That means the way you believe in yourself, you try give a chance to Akiteng. Let Akiteng also show her skills. So if that love is not there and you don't trust each other, I don't believe it's Pan-Africanism.
Pan-Africanism.
I like the way she has approached it. It's not the usual. So why haven't we ever written about Winnie Mandela? And the role she played.
Because she went against societal standards of her roles. She broke every rule.
But why haven't we written about her? You know, when you talked about the men around the liberation, and then I see, okay, Nelson is there, but he was in prison.
Yes.
He was outside here and keeping the momentum going. It was winning.
And I bet we have winnies everywhere. In every country.
But how come South Africa shortchanged us and has never written this story? Maybe we should write that story from Uganda.
I think there's actually a book on winning.
And so there is a book, but that book dwells more on her love relationship with Mandela.
Yes.
So it still presents Mandela as the main character.
Patriarchy.
We want, yes, the patriarchy, it still seeps through. So we want the woman stand out.
Yes.
She risked herself. She pulled those kids who were killed on the streets of Soweto. Those things happened because of her and her lobby experience and the fact that she could not sleep on her laurels. Let's imagine it was another woman. Okay, the husband is in prison, says, poor man, let me now go under my knees and pray.
Yes.
And she prayed 1 year, 2 years, up to the 27th year, and nothing was happening. So then Mandela would have come out, and then so what? What would have happened to his name? But she fought on. We have then people like Chaka Yvonne. Still, I think about South Africa because they went through that period of apartheid, which stayed for a longer time,
yes.
even when we went past colonialism. Now, Yvonne sang very many songs. I think even if I sang like 1 or 2 songs here, people would immediately begin to nod their heads. But they were saying, "Free Africa, freedom
is coming tomorrow."
Freedom is coming tomorrow. It is our time. So those things, I think that we now need to document women. I don't think Kwame Nkrumah was here alone.
Walking.
I also don't think Patrice Lumumba was
alone.
there doing it. And then here we have the Mau Mau rebellion being led. The Maji, who was there? Who were the people who were sprinkling the water? It was the women. But we don't have a strong woman coming through. Every time there is, then again the man's story comes up. In Uganda, I'm certain there are very many women who were at the forefront, but they were kept in the shade. And then we saw Milton Obote, then we saw Kabaka Yeka, then we saw the Kabaka's kingdom, and the women were always behind even the Bataka, the ones who had the parliament, when it was the Bataka parliament. The women were not in the Bataka parliament. What were they doing? They were digging.
But I also think there was somewhere, because so Uganda Women's Network has done an elaborate documentation of the journey of the women's movement. And in one of the documents they read, and maybe we need to have another show on this.
Yes.
One of the documents that I watched, they talked of a group of women who went and sat in the governor's compound and refused to leave. Like they just sat there.
Wow.
And the governor did not know what to do.
Yes.
With these women who came from their gardens and sat in his compound. And there were demands that they were making.
And those demands must have been to do with the Kabaka.
With the politics. Yes, and the politics. And he granted them their demands. So they were there, but like you said, the documentation. The story is not there. It's very weak.
Yes, so I think we need... Because even when you go to Tanzania, then you have a lot of Nyerere swinging through.
Yes.
But what did Mama Nyerere do?
Yeah.
What is it that was behind there? I think that the women's story has actually been shortchanged. And maybe 60 years down the road and you ask about Pan-Africanism, that's a good one. We need to think through documenting these things because the women were there and they certainly played a significant role in getting us to be free. But... I also thought it's good to reflect like her, that when we went through the time of, for example, colonialism, the people who bore the brunt were women.
Yes.
Because even in the time of war, here, the 1986 war, that war that came from Lutwa to now, 1986, it is the women that were in the gardens. They were the ones who were growing cassava. They're the ones who were wearing gomeses and risking themselves and going to the trading center to see where they are doing the other side, they're in the negative side. They're the ones who are bringing information. But where are their names? Why do we have 27 guns and 27 men and we don't have the 27 women? I think it's time we remember the 27 women. They are there. They are somewhere.
They're somewhere.
They are mentioned in passing. They said, oh, that one, she brought us drugs, she brought us... Winnie Byanyima was there in the bush somewhere. And they used to say, oh, she would advise you.
Yes.
But we want now documentation for these women. And I think that, for me, you've thrown a good challenge at us. Yeah.
Thank you.
In the spirit of Pan-Africanism, they make very beautiful points. But if I may just, the NRM, and I don't know if in the sense of comradeship, in the sense of the unity that the forefathers had tried to forge. Unfortunately, of course, they all can't be here forever. So with every forefather that goes, somehow the spirit that was, the drive that was, driving them tends to die, and everybody comes with new ideology, and you can't blame them. It's a dynamic world. Maybe even the ideas are much more welcome. But I would want to applaud the president on one hand. Whereas the NRM has ideology, it has socio-economic transformation, it has patriotism, it has Pan-Africanism in its key core values. And I want to applaud the president for one thing. Every time there is an instability in the region, you will see him, rising to the occasion. I don't know if it's because he has lived those times, and he was at the time when they were trying to forge some sort of unity, some sort of Africanity, within them. But every time there's like an instability, say Congo, quite recently, say Mogadishu, Uganda has always had its roots there. And the men and women in the UPDF are at the forefront in African Union. So I want to applaud him that on that front. And I sort of miss what would have become of Libya-Uganda talks, see if Gaddafi had not died. So for me, it is I don't know if it's something that, I don't know if we shall have the same spirit as they had, the younger people. I don't know how we will approach it as the younger people, but I see it with the older. And for me, I don't know. I really don't know how the younger ones will have to get in and have that zeal, that morale, that love for, the African, people of the African descent. And I have seen women, I don't know if it's deliberate or something, we always see them being showcased when they go, for example, to AMISOM. So I applaud the woman and the man that is at the forefront. Every time Uganda has, there's any instability in the region, you see Ugandans running there, you see UPDF running there, you see AMISOM, you see African Union, you see people running there. I think quite recently they were threatening to go to You're
saying threatening.
I don't think we ended up there. Yeah, the Ukrainian. I don't think we ended there.
And maybe one day, on another day, we could have a conversation around whether these decisions that are made on the foundation of Pan-Africanism or on the foundation of business, and our external policy.
But does everybody get to go? No.
That's the thing. Again, opportunity cost. Yeah. So again, we're not sure if it's Pan-African or it is some other reasons. But today we shall celebrate the fact that we are interested in other people's business. Yes, you are sharing with me about a woman that in Ntungamu who was one of the women in the bush.
Oh yes.
Yes.
There's some lady called Ida in Ntungamu there in the village. A year ago, I was just moving in my personal business. I landed on her. We had a chat. She showed me her leg, where she had the wound. Her leg is big like mine, and she has a very big hole on her leg and the thigh. Actually, she has a quarter of her thigh.
Oh, dear.
She told me she lost that part of her thigh when she was in the bush fighting. Unfortunately, immediately after the President Museveni captured power, she left and got married. So she's been home. She's been asking whether she can get some compensation. I tried actually asking some soldiers They were telling me no, because she's like deserted, so she cannot have those benefits. But to me, I believe the sacrifice that she made is worth compensating.
Yes.
And then we have these women like Winnie Byanyima, who was also part of it. At least for her, we have seen her come at the front to contest for a seat in parliament. We had a lot of expectations that she would become a president at any one time. But we have waited in vain.
Maybe there's still
Maybe
time.
there's still a chance.
Maybe there's still a chance.
Yes.
But we are still hoping that at one time a female president will come on board. Not these other ones who just contest. The ones I don't want to mention about.
I think
But
Charia.
yes.
I think Akiteng was good to answer Pan-Africanism straight.
No, but she didn't. Charia didn't do a good job. She let us down. Oh, please. We shall discuss her another time. Yeah, you know.
We are seeing the Pan-Africanism
Let's just applaud her courage.
that we are seeing
To have stood.
Yeah.
in 1981,
Yes.
1985, 86 January, we saw President Moi coming on board to make to mediate the conflict between the current president and the other rebel group that was fighting. So they even formed Nairobi Peace Accord. However, that accord did not last for long. They wanted a ceasefire and share of the government power. But Museveni, then who was a rebel, violated the agreement and again took over and captured power. And that was the end of it. And I think Moi had a good cause to bring these people together and live in peace. We have seen the Pan-African Parliament, by the way. I don't know whether it represents the Pan-Africanism or it represents something, individual gains that you have said. I don't know. But we have the Pan-Africanism. Then when we come to the region, we have what brings us together, the East African community. We have the East African Standby Force,
Yes.
which has actually become a key in maintaining peace and stability in the region. I think there is something that we must celebrate in this country.
Okay. Thank you very much. And for the ones who are watching, in case you're wondering why suddenly there is a lot of conversation around NRM, you ought to know that 60 years of independence.
30.
Yeah, 34.
37
had been under NRM government. So it's a little hard to have that conversation without mentioning them. They are very entwined in this thing. Yeah? But moving on, and our time is fast spent. So we'll just have maybe two more questions. Independence, again, political independence, you talked about, are you truly free? But also when we look at independence, marred with the removal of free will, marred with slavery. And then in your earlier submission, you talked about women who are going out. So 60 years of independence, are we truly free when it comes to conversations around human trafficking, conversations around modern day slavery, especially within the context of Uganda? Are we protecting the women who are going out enough, or are we falling back into that trap?
Yes, we must appreciate that there are challenges of unemployment in this country. So our girls find solace in outside countries. They have faced a lot of challenges, human trafficking, organ harvesting, and so on. And some have been killed. This is somehow a challenge that the country, Uganda, and the receiving countries of this labor must sign sign policies that will protect these laborers. I believe the Ministry of Gender has tried to do something. The embassies in those receiving countries are now briefed. Government has now sent attaches, both from the military and police, in those embassies. There is something in progress that is going to be done. Then the human organ harvesting, There is also a bill in the making.
Yes.
It's in Parliament under the Committee on Health. It's going through a committee stage. The Human Organ Transplant Bill of 2022.
Yeah.
We hope passing of this bill and getting assented to by the President will protect our girls and boys that are going abroad to seek for employment and maybe something that can develop their homes.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
I must say that our government is good at drafting plans. They do great work, and they have written a lot of them. Bills after bills, petitions after petitions. You know, many things have been drafted and many things have been left hanging. I must say that we shouldn't talk about what, I think we shouldn't be talking about what they have done right now. I think the problem we should be focusing on should be the action plan, the implementation. I have a colleague who works out there, one of the young ladies who go out there. She told me that these ladies who come from countries like she mentioned, was it Zimbabwe? No, she mentioned some African country. That you find that a Ugandan is paid 800,000, and this other worker in another country is paid 2 million. Yet they are doing the same work. They are all doing housework, and they are in the same what? The same house. Meaning that all these things they are doing, they should make sure implementation is done. I don't know. It goes back to the Pan-Africans. These people do things they don't feel. They don't feel these things. They just do them for the sake of doing them. I think there is that spirit that we need. People should imagine, if that's my girl. I have a colleague who stays in the US. One time I was stuck, I'm done with my degree, and I'm like, I think I'm going. He told me, when you go and things fail, don't call me. I won't be able to help. Why? Girls get stuck, girls kill themselves. If they are not killed, they do kill themselves. They throw themselves from up to down. What is the cause of this? And what is the government doing? Because if the government allowed this, if this was bad, the government wouldn't have allowed it, because there are many things it has hindered that they have not gone into process because they don't believe in them. But right now, this thing, if they do believe in that, because remember in the COVID break, they were mentioning of a percentage these people who work abroad brought to the country. I'm forgetting the figures. They brought a huge sum because everyone was home. And these people abroad were still receiving the money. So that means there is no way they will stop it. But let them have this in mind, that if these people have managed to contribute to our GDP, they have managed to bring in something in the country, how are we protecting? You know, we studied about something. I was part of the forward camp, and they are talking about the tree. And they are relating the tree to human lives. The roots as what grounds you, the trunk as your support system, the leaves, the fruits and what. Because we are a huge support of our government. If we are not here, our government shouldn't be here. Like, seriously, because we contribute to the money they spend, because people pay taxes. And now the money these people get, and it's brought back, it's still invested in the country, and the investment still end up being benefiting the what? The government. So let's ask the government, how much is it putting in, and how is it willing to support its support system? Because those are the support system of the government.
Yes.
They are supporting it. So I think that's it.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether any of you has a submission, or we can go to our last question, because we are
You can
almost
choose
done.
to go, no
Okay,
problem.
so
But
let's go to-
Palestine picked something very good. What they did is, whenever they sent their young people abroad, it was for a specific cause. Learn the technology and what they are doing. China did the same thing for the US.
Yes.
They sent their people to learn innovations in the US.
And come back.
And study about a phone. Look at the phone. What things do they want? They are the ones who discovered that the phone would need this jacket. They discovered a phone would need a screen guard. They discovered the phone would need the headphones. So they said, you know, these guys have developed a phone. But for us, what we can do, give it accessories. So from the brain of the young people that they sent there, they decided to start producing these things, which even the West wanted. So they bought them in big. And China grew its market very big, and the country changed.
Yeah.
But for us, when you send our Ugandans, you're sending them to be house girls. You're sending them to sweep and clean people's bums. Why can't you sit down as a government, 37 years in power, and think, use your brains to make Ugandans a better people to deliver your country?
Yes,
I think for me, that's what strikes me.
And you know, you just ushered us into the next question. You know, and maybe you have answered it, but in case you haven't answered it, you can also re-answer it. But 60 years of independence, what is that one thing you look at and you shake your head and you say, naye, one or two swala. This shouldn't be happening at 60 years. And so, as soon as we are done with the relations on the 9th of October, this is urgent business. Yes.
There's a lot when I told you about the scorecard. One of them, the biggest thing that should happen to this country is democracy.
Yes.
On the question of democracy, elections, our quality of elections has continued to plummet. And also freedom of speech and expression. Right now, Parliament, you have a bill on social media. You took our Wabimenza, we kept quiet until now cancel me. Every parliamentarian who is watching me, you've been choking and gagging Ugandans. Every space they get, you choke. You choke. Now, social media was the last one, and it's hinged on Article 29 of that Constitution. You don't care. What you want to do is amend that Constitution, Article 29, make it flow in tandem with what you want for social media. You think by legislating on social media, you're helping the country. You're not. Kenya left their citizens to express themselves on social media. They left their dear forms to go out on social media. They were able to participate through social media. Social media was their space to speak. Don't gag Ugandans with bad laws. A bad law is no law at all.
Thank you very much. Bashira?
To me, I think a lot is going on in my mind.
Just one.
A lot. But I got this from, I saw a quote. It was written by the former Prime Minister of Sweden sometime back, 1986, something there. I'm trying to relate that quote to what is happening right now.
Just one thing.
In Uganda. Yes, I'm going to say one thing. But I'm trying to bring it in a way people would understand it. We are using the same approach and we are expecting different results. We've used the same approach for 37 years. We are expecting the education, we are expecting the roads, we are expecting the women emancipation, we are expecting everything through using the same what? Approach. And it's not working. So if the approach is not working, we should change the approach. Yes,
okay.
Things will work.
Thank you very much. Gloria?
I want to dwell myself on the local government as a key point of service delivery. The Local Government Act empowers the local governments to collect taxes and revenues and develop their areas. As it is now, the money that is collected in local governments is sent back at the center. Local governments remain without money. The service delivery is not reaching the targeted person. My request is that I would want to see local governments given empowerment. They collect the revenues and use it at source, if it's possible anyway.
It should
you
be
also
possible.
Understand that there are very many
demands,
administrative units which are consuming a lot of money but service delivery is not there. This service delivery is taken at the expenses of the political positions that are being occupied. And it's not deliberate by government, it's these people who ask for these administrative units. Then thereafter they cry for service delivery. I can speak with authority about Ntungamo. Is the third largest district in this country. It has one road unit, like the rest of these small districts. It has 62 councillors. It's the whole parliament sitting in that council. So if these people, if these such big districts can be empowered, both financially and otherwise, so that they can be at the same level of development with others, the idea of decentralization can also be pushed such that these local leaders are empowered to develop and give services to the common man who votes every now and again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And they vote in, no?
They vote?
Well, for me, I think I will just quote something small. To whom much is given, much is expected. You are here for these many years, 30 plus years. And unfortunately, there are issues like unemployment that are very dear to me and to very many young people out there. As a country, we could sit down. We may not do much, or we may not handle everything at a go. How about we prioritized and just looked at one issue that is affecting very many people? And in this case, I'll just be a little selfish and say the unemployment rate, because anyway, the youths are quite a number. They account for so many, and we have such a very vibrant youth in this country. Maybe we just prioritized and said, hey, let's just focus and say, how do we close this unemployment? And maybe in the next Chisanja, we are accounting for, maybe we have offset this and something that is visible, not just in paper. Sit down, be deliberate, accept alternative thinkers to come on the table, accept criticism. Because from then you're going to, get way forward. From then you're going to forge a better, you're going to get ideas. And we need them as a country. So we are here, we want to support. We are here, we want to speak. We are here, we are willing to even sit down and put in the time to say, how do we close this unemployment rate? And you see, we're just talking about the labor export. I don't even think there's going to be so much, even with the bill, because the people that have the licenses are the protected folk. If I may, just interest yourself in the people that are holding license. You will know that even if anything is happening to our girls out there, there's not much that is going to happen. So we could sit as a country, just prioritize. Do a simple industrialization phase. It may not be a broader aspect, but focus, channel our energy. The same way we say we are releasing these funds to protect this, we're releasing these budgets. We fix our budgets to only priority lists, and it could take us places. Otherwise, as a country, as a young person out there, don't wait for anybody to come. You're on your own. Just strive to get through the day and get through the week, but only do legal things.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Evelyn. And I think from my side, the one thing that still baffles me after 60 years is that even with all the talk about the surplus electricity that we have and rural electrification, you have West Nile not on the national grid. Like,
there's a countdown.
When we talk down, when you talk about businesses, when you talk about employment, they run and thrive on stable electricity. And so I think it's embarrassing that as a country we celebrate 60 years of independence and there's an entire unit and community in West Nile that is not connected to the national grid. So yeah, the countdown is on. Let's connect West Nile to the national grid and let all of us be concerned about that. Okay. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening, and we hope that you've enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.